Hello, everybody, and welcome to our final section. Final unit, final section. Let's do it. So here we're going to talk about the depositional landforms associated. So alluvial fan, right? We've added material in, deposited material, things like talus. We'll get into these. So what are our features here? Could be formed by deposition of sediment, includes alluvial fans, bajadas, playas, not playas, it's a different lecture, sand dunes, talus slopes. These are sometimes called scree slopes as well. Interchangeably, you might see that scree. First, alluvial fans. So we have these fan-shaped piles of sediment, which are where the river meets the valley, essentially. At the very end there, the river slows down, it drops the entire sediment load, it starts to get wider as far as the stream channel. And usually you see this whenever you have a mountain right next to a relatively flat area. We'll see some photos. So the sediment itself that it deposits is called alluvium. And usually, whenever you have the stream moving back and forth in the flat valley that it enters into, it gradually builds up this fan. And sediment deposition here is due to water. You'll see in the image for this one. So we have our river coming out of the mountains here. And then once it hits the flat area, it drops its sediment. And the part of the reason it makes this fan shape is because the river, first it's moving over here, moving over here. You have these previous inactive lobes where the river was at previous times. It also tends to get a little bit wider as far as the actual channel width once it gets into this relatively flat area here. See this in our picture. So here are our mountains. We have a river coming through here, and it makes this fan. You can really see that these are older river channels where it's dropped all of its sediment in the past. You see a smaller fan over here too. So there's fan. The Bajada is what we get kind of similar to this, where we have these overlapping alluvial fans here. The front part of the mountain range is buried in these sorts of sediments. It's again going to be due to water, like with the alluvial fans. And this, you can see we have our mountains here, have our flatter area down here in the valley, and we have all these fans that have built up like an entire front to the mountain range out of all these alluvial fans, right? So it can be kind of hard to see what's going on topographically here, but these are all of our fans here. You can see them all entering out into this. And the playa is this shallow, sort of short-lived, seasonal, maybe lake or lake bed that forms whenever you have water draining out from a place of higher elevation into a relatively flat basin area, flat, low-lying area, which does not have an outlet to the sea or another body or anything else. So these are pretty common in desert regions, tend to be very, very flat. Any sediment which is deposited is due to water. You can actually see it in the photo here. So this is our mountain range here. It's a little bit hard to see. You have these alluvial fans built up at the base. Water comes down through the mountains and gets here and spreads out and drops all of its sediment load. And these tend to be very, sometimes seasonal, very on and off. So it rains a whole lot at one point, and you get a lake, deposits all of the sediment in there, and then it dries up. And then it rains again, and you have this whole lake here, and then it dries up, and it deposits more sediment here into the Playa sand dunes. So these are these hills of relatively loose, unconsolidated sand, which are built by wind processes. So counter to most people's intuitions, what you see with deserts on movies, most deserts do not have any sand dunes, right? You live in Arizona, somebody asks you, if there's sand dunes by your house, you're going to say, well, no, there's not anywhere near me. Like, yes, I live in the desert. No, there are no sand dunes. These can occur in any sort of desert. We'll, talk a little bit about the types of dunes, but it's mainly due to deposition, due to winds. And we're not going to go into super detail as far as how these are deposited, but maybe just knowing that you have these different kinds of dunes here, these 5 different kinds. Barken dunes, transverse dunes, right, go opposite direction to how the wind is blowing. You have these linear dunes forming long lines, parabolic dunes, which are a little bit like the Barken dunes, but you notice these curve against the wind, or really curve with the wind, and these curve against the wind here, and star dunes, where the wind is coming from different directions, make this little star-shaped patterns. So these might be Barken dunes here, might be more linear dunes over here. Now the Talus Slope, what is this? This is going to be the pile of rocks which accumulates at the base of some cliff, some slope, and it is completely driven by gravity. Right? You have rockfall from cliff material, and it builds up this sort of loose rubble pile at the base. We're building up from the base of whatever the topography is. A lot of times these are going to be kind of similar in appearance to the alluvial fan because of the fan shape. That it would be much steeper and just of a different character, not formed by water, completely formed by gravity. Right. So this here. So is this a plateau, a mesa, or a butte? Remember? So taller than it is wide. This would be butte here, and this, I have my mouse, is the Talus Slope. You have this unconsolidated, loose kind of rubble material, got stuff of all different shapes and sizes in there, and it's a little bit harder to see, but you can sort of see it in the background here, the Talus Slope. And keep in mind, a little bit less talus over here, right? You can actually see the sediment layers exposed, but here it is exposed very, very well. So we've come to the end of the end of the end. What are our big ideas for this section? 5 types of deserts, where do they form and why? What are our erosional landforms, and what are our depositional landforms? This is the very end of our final section. I will shed a tear off screen for your sake and for mine. Hope you guys have had a good semester, and I wish you all the best in life. Thank you.